when we want to make sure through whole foods we're supporting methylation properly, what does that look like?
So you want, again, I can talk about some of our superfoods. In our research, and we'll get to this, I should just actually snapshot our research because it's kind of exciting. We looked at a methylation intensive diet. We looked at a diet and lifestyle program that optimizes methylation and especially DNA methylation. My research focus is on making sure as we age, we are turning the genes on that we want on, we are turning off the genes off that we don't want on, and then we're living long and healthy. So in our study, using this DNA methylation program, we were able to change gene expression towards something more youthful. So our participants actually got over 3 years younger. So that's the excitement about DNA methylation, is that we actually showed using a diet and lifestyle program, you could reverse bioage. So what does that diet actually look like? Yes, it's got to be dense in methyl donor nutrients. We call it an epinutrient because it changes epigenetics, changes gene expression, and a methyl donor rich diet is essential. And then there's also something called methylation adaptogens. Again, very important epinutrients that we'll talk about in a second. But the methyl donors and the way that and where we get them, if you are not a vegetarian or vegan, liver is a methyl donor superfood. I cannot tell a lie. If you're open to eating liver, it's packed with a day's requirement of folate, of B12, another really important methyl donor called choline. It's also got a whole host of beautiful minerals. It's a multivitamin in a food matrix. But you don't have to eat it. I take mine in caps. I'm not good at cooking liver, so but it's so important that I just take it encapsulated. Greens, as you alluded to earlier, just dark leafy greens, essential. Another superstar in my program are mushrooms. Maitake, shiitake, enoki, packed with choline. They're packed with all sorts of really, brilliant nutrients. But when we look at it from an epinutrient lens, they've got loads of choline, they've got folate, they just have a beautiful complement of really important epinutrients. Where else? Seeds, nuts, again, dense with epinutrients. Eggs, choline is a methyl donor, so it will support B12 and folate. Beets have something called betaine in them, and betaine is also an all-important methyl donor, again, active in that methylation cycle that I've been mentioning. So those are some of our, all-important methyl donor foods that we, used in our study and use in our clinical practice here.
So far methyl donors, we've gone over folate, B12, choline, and betaine?
Betaine, yep.
Betaine. So is there any others I'm forgetting that we've talked about?
There are secondary nutrients that play a role in the folate cycle, the methylation cycle. Those are the heavy lifters. Secondary nutrients are the minerals that are involved. So potassium, magnesium, zinc, and then DHA, from fish oil, can help kind of stimulate or upregulate methylation cycle. So DHA plays a role. There's some other B vitamins, riboflavin, niacin, that have an influence. B6 plays a role. So there's these primary heavy lifting nutrients, and then there's there's a plethora of secondary nutrients. It's dense. And then from animal protein, the all important amino acid methionine is fundamental to the methylation cycle as well.
Okay, just to simplify now in a practical sense, we've talked about a lot of different chemicals and different foods that you can get them in, and things like liver and beets, things people might not be eating on a regular basis. To give people a comprehensive plan to make sure they're supporting methylation, what would they want to get in within a week to get all these different nutrients?
That's a great question. So we have targets that we set, daily in our study. So if you want to actually achieve what we achieved in the study, so if you're looking for a longevity program and you want to do, you want the promise of biological age reversal, you pin our program to your fridge, you plan at the grocery store, you're going to be doing more greens than you're used to, and perhaps a little more cruciferous than you're used to, but it's very doable. We're shooting for about 7 cups of veg per day. Some of those will be greens, leafy greens, kale, spinach, chard, whatever's in the grocery store that looks beautiful. Beet greens, if you're buying your beets. Colorful veggies, again, whatever looks beautiful. Those colorful polyphenols are in the category of methylation adaptogens, so important epinutrients for a different reason. Cruciferous are just wildly important. So you want to be getting some broccoli. Again, kale is a cruciferous. You can do collards, Brussels sprouts, whatever suits your fancy on that given day. So you want to be thinking about getting this collection of vegetables into your body every day in whatever way that works. I tend to do a big salad, or a big stir fry, and I'll bring, my largest meal is lunch. And so I'll just bring a lot of my epi-nutrients, a lot of our requirements just into my office and, nosh on that throughout the day and get most of them. We want people to try to have one beet per day. There's beet powder that you can access, which is fine. Eggs is a weekly commitment. You don't have to have eggs every day, but if you have 5 to 10 eggs per week, which is pretty easy, if you have a couple of egg-based breakfasts or meals, then you're done with your egg requirement. Liver is so nutrient dense that you do not have to have it every day. You just have a few servings over the course of the week. And again, I do it. It's easy for me to just do it as a caps. I mean, I can get here some clean sourced liverwurst that I happen to like, or pate. I can get it sometimes. And so I might eat that because I like that. We want people to be having green tea. We want people to be using spices such as turmeric to get the curcumin. And there's a handful of other requirements, but those are the nuts and bolts of what we want people to achieve in a daily basis.
Got it. And you've touched on the adaptogens. Let's talk about specifically how they fit into this.
Yeah. So methylation is incredibly important across our life. Pregnancy is massive and huge, as we spoke about. But as we age, we become less efficient at methylating. And for that reason, we need all of the methyl donors. We need that methylation cycle functioning at top capacity. But here's the thing. As we age, we start to turn off genes that we want on, and we start to turn on genes that we want off. There's sort of this predictable breakdown that happens in gene expression that makes us vulnerable to the diseases of aging. So aging is the biggest risk factor for cancer, for diabetes, for dementia, for cardiovascular diseases. Aging is the biggest risk factor. And a piece of that is that the methylation that's happening on our DNA really becomes kind of out of step. It becomes imbalanced in a very predictable way. So we want methyl donors. We want to keep methylation happening, but we also need these other nutrients that direct traffic. They direct where the methyl donors are going. So I just want to say this is so incredibly important. As we age, 2 things happen. We have less methyl donors, so we methylate less efficiently, but we put those methyl groups onto genes we don't want them on, and we take them off of genes we want them on. So it becomes wonky, to use a scientific term. It becomes imbalanced. So we need methyl donors to make sure we have supply, but then we really need to direct where it's happening. And these, I think, are the role of the methylation adaptogens. Actually, exercise, sleep, and some of the lifestyle pieces are as important. But these methylation adaptogens seem to really make a difference in where methylation is happening in the body. Classically, I'll give you, and actually, let me just define those. So what are the methylation adaptogens? Those are the colorful fruits and veg, the berries, the peppers, the cruciferous vegetables, green tea, all of our spices, the beautiful spice collection. Most of those are really densely bioactive at the level of gene expression. They're methyl adaptogen extraordinaires. There are many, many methylation adaptogens. One of the coolest things about Younger You, this book, is there's a 30-page epinutrient appendix on where you can find these adaptogens, actually where you can find the methyl donor category of nutrients and the methylation adaptogens. And I can assure people that you're eating a lot of them already, and it's not a heavy lift for you to bring more in your diet. In fact, it's not a heavy lift to have every single forkful of information, every single forkful of food be packed brick by brick with these all important epinutrients. So as we age, one of the classic things that happens is that tumor suppressor genes, genes that keep cancer at bay in our body, are turned off. They're actually turned off as we age. We hypermethylate them and shut them down. When a gene is heavily methylated, it can't be transcribed. So that information from that gene is not accessible to the body. We don't benefit from that gene. Hypermethylation of tumor suppressor genes is a common phenomenon as we age. And these the methylation adaptogens, the bulk of the research on them lies in their ability to turn these tumor suppressor genes on, just again, through ingesting them as food. We can turn these genes back on and they can go about protecting us from cancer. Extremely important. But we see this with many, many different genes. As we age, our pro-inflammatory genes get turned on. The genes that quench inflammation are inhibited. It's an interesting phenomenon. It happens in such a predictable way as we age that there are scientists out there who are really pretty heavily debating right now whether aging isn't a programmed phenomena. Kind of a separate conversation, but it's interesting.
To highlight what you just went over there, so we have our methyl donors. We want to make sure nutrition is supporting those. Mm-hmm. And then we have our methylation adaptogens, which seem like they're more important as we age, so we can control how methylation works. We have the donors there, but we need to make sure things aren't quote unquote wonky.
Yes.
Do I have that right?
Yes. So the methyl donors are essential. We get less of them as we age. We need to keep them robust. The methylation adaptogens direct where these guys are going. So they're happening. So gene expression is happening as optimally as possible. I would say that we need to be eating these epinutrients, the donors and adaptogens, throughout the lifespan. So I wouldn't isolate it just to aging. Gene expression gets wonky as we age, but we're engaged in gene expression throughout the lifespan. Really vital times include, during, in utero, pregnancy, early infancy, and then the aging journey. But even, there's really even interesting research on pre-puberty and puberty, young adulthood. So there's no time that eating for your genes isn't important. There really isn't. But as we age, some very predictable breakdown phenomena happen that we can get in the driver's seat and stop, or turn the volume down on.
Okay, so we know we have to eat for our DNA methylation. We've talked about folic acid before. Plus, you mentioned either DHA or fish oil, which gets me thinking about supplements. And can we do this with food alone is the question. And if supplements are involved, which ones? And then how do we make sure we're getting enough of those?
Good. Yeah, really good question. So in our research study, the only supplements that we prescribed were a probiotic. So a healthy gut makes a multivitamin. It makes B12, it makes folate. We can make a bunch of this stuff if we tend to our gut. Isn't that amazing? It makes biotin. I mean, there's a whole bunch of nutrients that are produced by a healthy microbiome. So we gave our study participants Lactobacillus plantarum. That is a probiotic that can support production of folate. And then we also gave them a greens powder. So I'm so bullish on these epinutrients that in addition to eating a bunch of veggies per day, I actually gave them extra in a powdered form. And those were the only two supplements that we gave our participants, and we were able to, as I said, change gene expression, change DNA methylation to make them biologically younger. So, we didn't prescribe them anything else. We didn't require them to do anything else. So one could take that on and keep their supplement protocol really quite simple. But I cover actually a lot of supplements in the book. I think most of us aren't eating enough fatty fish, we're not ingesting enough EPA and DHA, and we really need to supplement with it. So within the 8-week time frame of our study, keeping a very simple program is fine. But in daily life, for most of us, unless you are really paying attention to consuming good quality fatty fish, every single day, a supplement is, just a fabulous surrogate. It's something that we can do and that I do and prescribe to everybody. So yeah, fish oil is so important for longevity and health span. The data they're so strong, and the body of research is just always growing. The other thing is vitamin D. Most of us are deficient. Most of us, especially as we head into winter here in New England, people in my population are going to drop, and we don't make vitamin D as efficiently as we did even in, sunny climates and in sunny areas. So vitamin D is an important supplement as well.
So when it came to the diet over this 8 weeks, you mentioned fatty fish. Was that part of the diet on a daily basis or a few times a week, or how did that fit in?
We wanted people to consume, so we didn't require the consumption of fatty fish. Even though we include salmon as one of our superfoods, we did not require it for daily. It was recommended at least for weekly, and a couple of times per week if possible. But it wasn't a strict requirement for the program.
Okay, so this program, to highlight again, 8 weeks, people aged in reverse, for lack of a better word, over 3 years.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about, what the diet would look like to support DNA methylation, but let's talk about when we eat, because I know a piece of this is intermittent fasting.
Very
So
gentle.
how does that fit in?
Yeah, and so and I do want to say that I cover so much more in the book that we weren't able to do in our study. So if people are interested in it, do check it out to get details. We did a gentle intermittent fasting structure because we wanted this diet to be attainable for anyone, and so it's just our structure was 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Mildly beneficial. The diet itself is keto leaning, so we don't include, it's a hypoallergenic kind of keto leaning diet. So there's no grain, there are no legumes in the 8 weeks, no beans, no dairy. What else? No alcohol. It's higher in fat. So it nudged people into what we call background ketosis. It's not a frankly ketogenic diet, but we wanted to see, ketones are so potently anti-inflammatory. We wanted people to have some background ketones or a low level of ketones sort of bubbling to exert that anti-inflammatory effect. And ketones themselves, help regulate, influence gene expression. And then helping push that ketogenesis is the intermittent fasting structure. And again, for us, it was just 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Easy to do for most of us. And we could see in our participants, we didn't measure ketones, but we did measure triglycerides, and the triglycerides in our study participants were significantly dropped, suggesting that they were in ketosis. When you're burning fat, ketone is a byproduct. So since their fats dropped significantly, had we measured ketones, we would have likely seen some modest background ketones.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
We were able to change gene expression towards something more youthful. So our participants actually got over 3 years younger. Building our intervention brick by brick for DNA methylation, we did much better.